You are lying there, quiet, eyes half closed, mind gently detaching from the day's nonsense, like a 14th century monk dozing off after evening prayer, hoping not to be eaten by demons in his sleep. Welcome, traveler. You've stumbled into a world where nightmares weren't just bad dreams, they were warnings, punishments, a mild form of medieval entertainment. Yes, the Middle Ages, that charming slice of history filled with iron, incense, and an unreasonably high risk of dying from, well, everything. But before we drift through the strange fog of old Europe, do me a favor, subscribe to this channel. Go on. You don't want to be haunted by an old woman in a goat mask simply because you forgot to like and comment, do you? No? Good. And maybe tell us, what's the weirdest dream you've ever had? Drop it below, and we'll judge you silently, with love. Now let's set the mood. It's night in a small village, somewhere between nowhere and forgotten. You are a peasant. Congratulations, you smell like wood smoke, cheese, and damp wool. The fire in your little wattle and daub hut has gone out. It's freezing. Your bed is made of straw, likely full of fleas. You hear something outside. A dog? A wolf? Or just your neighbor Gregor being drunk again and arguing with a bush? But none of that scares you as much as what might happen when you close your eyes. Because in the medieval world, dreams weren't your brain's way of processing the stress of your chicken dying. Oh no, dreams were serious business. They were divine messages, or demonic visitations, or signs you'd eaten spoiled barley bread too close to bedtime. Tonight, you're hoping for a nice dream, something with a pretty meadow, or maybe one of those weird dreams where you're flying but also a fish. But you know what might happen instead? You might meet her, the Night Hag. Oh, yes, she was a classic, a demon who'd sit on your chest, making it impossible to move or breathe. Modern people call it sleep paralysis. But back then, it meant you were being punished by Satan, or worse, a jealous neighbor with knowledge of herbs. Imagine it. You awaken, but your body does not. You see the smoky outline of a figure, a hunched old woman with eyes like burned coals and breath like moldy rye. She presses on your chest. You try to scream, but only manage a weak gargle like a drowning squirrel. Good times. Scholars from the period, mostly monks with unfortunate haircuts, wrote entire books about dreams. Some dreams were sent by God, others by demons, others still were phantasmata, illusions caused by the vapors rising from your stomach. Because medieval science, much like their dental hygiene, was a work in progress. You see, back then, your body wasn't just a body. It was a battleground of elements, hot, cold, wet, dry. If you had a bad dream, maybe your black bile was acting up, or maybe your soul left your body for a stroll and got mugged by wandering spirits. Who's to say? Now let's talk about your bed. It's not very helpful. A thin mattress stuffed with straw, maybe feathers if you're lucky or noble, but you're not, you're common. Your sheets? Probably a reused potato sack. There's no pillow, just a bundle of your own clothes, which is a problem because you only own one shirt. Your room is dark, not because it's cozy, but because candles are expensive and you don't have any. And even if you did, the smoke might attract spirits, or rats, or rat spirits, a very real medieval concern. You try to calm yourself by reciting a prayer, the same one your grandmother taught you. In Latin, even though you don't speak Latin, no one really does, except that one monk in town who smells like turnips and judgment. You close your eyes. It's quiet, too quiet. Then you remember you didn't hang the garlic. That's right. You were supposed to hang garlic above the door to keep away the dream demons. Or was it wormwood? Number wormwood was for digestive problems. Or plague. It's hard to keep track. So now, here you are, vulnerable, open, and your brain, oh, your lovely medieval brain, starts to imagine things. What if tonight you dream of a black dog, the size of a man, whispering riddles in Latin? What if you dream of falling into hell and the devil looks like your Aunt Mildred? Dreams like these weren't just spooky, they were messages. Maybe you'd wake up, walk barefoot to the local priest, and confess every sin you've ever imagined, just in case that nightmare was a divine warning, even if your greatest sin was coveting your neighbor's cow. And don't forget the dream manuals. Oh, yes. The Middle Ages had dream interpretation books, written by people who probably hadn't bathed since the last solar eclipse. If you dreamed of a snake, that meant betrayal, or lust, or kidney stones. Interpretations were flexible, like a plague card schedule. If you dreamed of water, that could be purification, or drowning, or just that you needed to pee. See, everything had meaning, and it gets better. In some towns, dreams could even be used as evidence. If someone dreamed that their cousin was consorting with demons, that cousin could be tried. Not convicted, mind you, but tried, which honestly is already too much. Imagine getting arrested because someone dreamt you were a goat. This is why medieval people were always mildly terrified of sleep, because it meant surrendering your body and possibly having a spiritual encounter, or just, being eaten by rats. As you finally drift off, the last thing you think about is the sound of hooves, not horse hooves, smaller, lighter, like maybe goat hooves. You try not to open your eyes. You tell yourself it's just a dream, just a dream. But if you see a horned figure in your sleep tonight, don't worry. Just politely ask them if they've subscribed to the channel. And if not, you know what to do. Close your eyes and let's go deeper. Let's pick up where we left off. You're still lying in your straw bed, still trying not to breathe too loud in case it attracts the attention of a wandering dream demon with a foot fetish. The night is cold. Your nose is frozen, but your feet are sweating. Somehow. Welcome to medieval climate control. It's just weather and suffering. Tonight, your soul may leave your body and take a tour of the cosmos. That's what people believed anyway. A nice astral vacation, unless it got lost, or possessed, or intercepted by a ghost with unresolved farm debts. But let's take a step back. Let's talk about the bedroom, if you can call it that. You sleep in one room with your entire family, your mother, your brothers, the family goat. Privacy is a myth. Walls are for nobles, and the sounds of human digestion are part of your lullaby. There is no mattress, no spring coil, no memory foam, just straw, possibly with bugs. Definitely with bugs. You scratch your leg. Is it a flea or a sign of spiritual corruption? That's the kind of bedtime thinking that really helps you relax. Now, dream demons weren't just sleep paralysis. No. They were full-on cultural characters. Nightmares were alive. They had names. They had moods. They had rules. In Slavic folklore, there was the Mora. She crept in through the keyhole or through your mouth if it was open. So, yes, people literally slept with a cloth over their face to prevent soul possession. Imagine that. Waking up every few hours to check if your spirit is still in your body. Very restful. In German speaking lands, you had the Alp, a shape shifting dream creature. Sometimes it looked like a cat, sometimes a little goblin, always fond of sitting on your chest, squeezing the life out of your lungs. Sort of like your job, but with horns and worse dental hygiene. People thought dreams could predict everything: weather, war, death. Your cousin dreams of a burning forest? Better start packing. Someone dreams of three crows and a fish? Probably means you're getting married, or dying, or both. They weren't big on clarity. And what did you do if you had a nightmare? You didn't just drink tea and journal. Number you called for the priest, or your grandmother, or your grandmother's priest, and then you probably burned something. Dream interpretation wasn't a casual hobby, it was survival. You had to figure out, was that demon sitting on your chest a punishment for pride, or just the result of eating pickled eel too late at night? Let's talk food. What you eat affects your dreams, even in the 1300s. And let's be honest, your medieval diet is not helping. Bread, beer, turnips, and, if you're fancy, salted meat. You're bloated, you're gassy, your stomach is full of fermented everything, which means your dreams are about to get weird. Somewhere between the midnight belch and the 3 a.m. rat scratch, your brain decides to invent a dream, a vivid one. Maybe you're being chased by a man with three faces, or trapped in a tower full of screaming birds, or attending a feast where the food turns into worms. You wake up, sweaty, heart racing. What does it mean? According to Hildegard of Bingen, a 12th century mystic who basically moonlighted as a sleep psychologist, it might mean your soul is trying to warn you, or you're spiritually out of alignment, or the moon is upset with your choices. Thanks, Hildegard. And then there's the dream cure: charms. You hang a charm above your bed, a bundle of herbs, maybe a carved rune, a bit of wax shaped like an animal you fear. If you're rich, you get a silver talisman. If you're poor, you settle for chicken bones and strong hope. Some people even slept with iron knives under the bed to keep demons away, because nothing says peaceful sleep like a weapon pointed at your spine. Others wrote prayers and folded them into tiny squares to put under their pillows. Want a good dream? Sleep on parchment. Just ignore the ink stain on your face in the morning. And if your dream was especially terrifying, you had to tell someone before breakfast. That was the rule. Otherwise, it would come true, which is especially awkward if your dream involved your neighbor turning into a fire-breathing goat. You once dreamed of flying over the village, watching everyone below live their little lives, mending nets, milking cows, stealing firewood. Then you fell right into the church, onto the altar, woke up screaming. The next morning, the priest gave you side eye and muttered something about unclean visions. You didn't argue, because arguing with priests tends to end in you digging your own trial pit. Now let's talk about those who took dreams too seriously. There were entire monasteries built around dream logic. Monks would sleep in shifts, hoping for divine visions. If Brother Marcus dreamed of a white stag with golden eyes, They might build a new chapel, or launch a crusade, or both. Dreams were also used in courtship. That's right. You tell someone, I saw you in my dream last night, dancing with angels. Boom, you're flirting, or being accused of sorcery. The line was thin, very thin. So tonight, as you lie there, wrapped in your single wool blanket that smells vaguely of mildew and sheep, your brain begins to settle. You breathe slow. You close your eyes. The fire's out. The room's dark. Your family is asleep. And then something brushes your foot. It's probably the dog. Probably. Just to be safe, you mutter a prayer, trace a cross over your chest, and try to dream of something pleasant, like floating over the fields, or being a rich noble with access to two shirts, maybe even a pillow. But deep down, you know, the dreams are coming, and they never ask permission. Just breathe, just float. Let your thoughts melt like a candle in the cold. The night is long and history is boring, but in the best way possible. You're still in bed, if that's what we're calling a pile of itchy straw and existential dread. And tonight, the dreams feel heavier. You roll onto your side, the one without the sharp twig sticking into your rib cage, and exhale slowly. Outside, a rooster crows too early. Or maybe it's possessed. You wouldn't be surprised. The fire's dead again. Your breath fogs the air. Your blanket is more symbolic than functional, but you're used to it. Cold toes build character, apparently. And somewhere in your dream-addled mind, you recall what the villagers say. Bad dreams come from bad spirits or bad cheese. That tracks. Last night's dinner was something between cheese and regret, but tonight's nightmare won't be demonic. No, no. Tonight, you'll be lucky. You'll get a prophetic dream, the kind kings paid gold for, the kind peasants feared, because knowing the future usually meant knowing how and when you'd die, which is relaxing. Let's float now, deep into that strange realm of medieval prophecy, because in the Middle Ages, dreams weren't just messages, they were a hotline to fate. Some believed dreams came from angels, others from the devil, obviously. And then there were the real scholars, the ones who hadn't seen the sun in 3 winters, who believed that your dreams were shaped by the stars. That's right, astrology. You see, your soul, apparently, was like a sponge, soaking up moonlight and Saturn's moody vibes. If Venus was in a bad spot, well, sorry, dream demons. If Mars was rising, expect blood. And if Mercury was doing something retrogradish, chaos, obviously. The local wise woman, the one who lived by the bog and smelled like smoked nettles, she knew these things. People would visit her, desperate for dream interpretation. They'd whisper, I saw a wheel turning in fire. Or, I dreamt of my teeth falling out and landing in a priest's stew. She'd squint at the stars, wave some dried herbs, and declare, Ah, yes, your soul is being hunted by a shadow goat. Sacrifice a chicken and avoid onions for 3 days. Science. Now, this wasn't just peasant superstition. Nobles were even worse. Kings had official dream interpreters. A bad dream could delay a war, or start one. Imagine the power. Sorry, sire, you dreamt of bees in your mouth. Best not invade France today. One of the most famous books of the era, the Dream Book of Daniel, wasn't by that Daniel, but people believed it was. And it had all the classics. Dream of birds, freedom, Dream of falling, doom, dream of dancing, forbidden, dream of dancing with birds while falling, you're cursed, also probably French. Let's now travel softly to a grand medieval castle, stone walls, tapestries, a bed big enough to bury a mule in. You're not a peasant anymore, you're a noble. Congratulations, you own 5 spoons. You still don't bathe, but now it's a choice. You lie under furs. The room is cold, but not rat infested. Your dreams? Oh, they're important now. A monk sits outside your chamber door, just in case you cry out in your sleep and need immediate confession. Because nobles, you see, don't just sleep, they divine. You had a dream last night, one of those vivid, uncomfortable ones. You were walking through a garden of bones. The sky was red. Your dead uncle winked at you. You awoke sweating into velvet, which is expensive. You send for the priest. He listens, nods solemnly, tells you it means betrayal. Someone in your court will try to poison your wine. Maybe, possibly. Or you just had too many roasted figs. Either way, better be suspicious of everyone, especially the cook. Now, back in the village, where you truly belong, dreams can also be shared. That's right, dream circles, not the cozy kind with tea and candles. No, these are fueled by fear and gossip. A woman dreams of fire. The next day, lightning hits the church. Everyone gasps. Clearly, she's a prophet, or a witch, depends on the weather. Another man dreams of pigs speaking Latin. The town ignores him until his house collapses a week later. Then they whisper, "He knew." Dreams were tied to community, to fear, to control. A nightmare wasn't just a personal horror, it was a warning, a sign, a celestial post it note from above or below. And sometimes, just sometimes, people would fake dreams. Yes, you heard right. Someone wanted attention. Oh no, I dreamt that the mayor is cursed. Boom. Free soup and whispers of sainthood. Want to marry someone? I dreamt of our wedding. Risky but effective. Want someone arrested? I saw them in my dream, dancing with demons. It wasn't just petty, it was tactical, dream propaganda. And now, finally, you stir under your blanket, not quite awake, not quite asleep, somewhere in the fog between time and dreams. The wind howls softly, or maybe it's someone crying outside. Hard to say. You wonder for a moment what your dream will be tonight. Will it be filled with strange symbols, half remembered faces, ancient words that sound like thunder? Or will you simply float, weightless, through the centuries, into another life, another sleep, another boring slice of history? Let the night take you, no questions, no fear, because in the end, whether it's a demon, a vision, or just your brain having a medieval meltdown, it's all just a dream. Sleep now, float gently. History is still watching. So, you're still half asleep, which is ideal because tonight's history lesson is just getting comfortably strange. You shift under your damp wool blanket, the one that smells faintly of pickled cabbage, wet sheep, and thyme. The straw beneath you crinkles like angry cornflakes. Outside, an owl hoots, or a witch disguised as an owl. This is medieval Europe, after all, where everything has at least one layer of spiritual threat. But tonight, we're not just talking about nightmares. Tonight, we're talking about the architecture of sleep itself. Not your dreams? No, no. But where you physically try to pass out and survive until dawn without being cursed, crushed, or carried off by a vengeful spirit with a taste for poor hygiene and unresolved guilt. Let's talk about the medieval bedroom, if you can call it that. If you're wealthy, your bed is a massive wooden box with curtains. Why curtains? To keep out cold air and wandering eyeballs, obviously. Also, to trap in the stench of 16th century breath and wool sweat. Romantic. The bed is raised off the ground, not for aesthetics, but to avoid rats, bugs, and possibly minor demonic intrusions. Bonus points if it creaks like a haunted ship every time you move. But if you're not wealthy, which sorry, you are not, your sleeping area is just a corner of your one room home. One room, one family, one goat, and a level of noise that rivals a haunted tavern during tax season. And let's talk about roommates. You don't sleep alone, ever. Privacy doesn't exist. Your entire extended family, and possibly your neighbor's cousin's apprentice, all share the same drafty space, which is why most people learn to snore in harmony, like a Gregorian choir of mucus and regret. Children cry, adults mutter. Someone passes gas and pretends it was a blessing from St. Lawrence. Your uncle talks in his sleep, sometimes in Latin, sometimes in animal noises. And yet, you drift off, because what else can you do? In this world, beds are rare. Sleep is sacred, but not in the way you think. You see, medieval sleep was biphasic. Yes, two parts. First sleep, then second sleep. People didn't just sleep through the night. They slept for a few hours, woke up in the middle of the night, around midnight or so, did things, and then went back to sleep. Imagine that. Waking up at 1 a.m., not to check your phone, not to scroll through regrets and memes, but to tend the fire, or pray, or check if your soul had been stolen by a wandering dream hag. Common nighttime activities included reading scripture, having quiet conversations, light snacking, or, if you're married, intimate activities with your equally unwashed spouse under a blanket of mutual compromise. Sometimes they even visited neighbors. That's right, midnight social calls. Hey, just stop by for a little dream interpretation and a crust of bread. Normal behavior. And after an hour or two, they'd go back to bed. Second sleep. It was a rhythm, a pattern, a nightly ritual, one that has somehow vanished in our modern, caffeine fueled world of melatonin gummies and anxiety apps. But back then, if you didn't wake up in the middle of the night, something was wrong. You were either deeply holy or probably dead. Let's ease now into the city, a medieval town. The streets are dark, the windows are shuttered. Somewhere, a pig screams, because pigs were surprisingly vocal and frequently kidnapped by local mischief spirits or bored teenagers. The night guard, usually one very tired man with a stick and a mild limp, patrols the street. He mumbles something about witches, spits on the cobblestones, moves on. Inside the homes, people toss and turn. Dreams creep in. Some feel like memories, others like warnings. Some are just weird mashups of goats and floating crucifixes. And occasionally, someone experiences the lucid dream. Yes, it happened then too, only they didn't call it that. They called it God's mirror or the waking sleep. Some believed it was a sign of sainthood, others that you were too close to the spirit realm and probably needed to be dunked in holy water immediately. Imagine dreaming, then realizing slowly that you are dreaming. You look around. You see the burning tower, the talking crow, the moon that's somehow weeping milk, and you whisper to yourself, "Ah, yes, I've slipped into the veil." You begin to float, not physically, spiritually. People wrote poems about this, accounts, testimonies. Monks scribbled in dim candlelight about their journeys into dreamscapes, golden staircases, gardens that hummed with music, endless deserts where angels whispered in riddles. And when they awoke, they were changed, either enlightened or never quite the same again. Because sometimes dreams weren't dreams at all. They were visions, portals, tests, the line between sleep and death, very thin. One bishop wrote of visiting the afterlife in a dream. He walked through a field of singing bones, saw the damned being chased by flaming pigs. He returned with a warning: live rightly or dream forever. No pressure. So tonight, as your body relaxes, despite the cold, the creaks, the nearby goat nibbling your blanket, you drift toward that fragile space between waking and sleep. You wonder, will this be one sleep or two? Will you dream or see? Will you be visited by the shadowy mare who steals breath, or by the angel who sings backwards in your ear? You don't know. And that's the best part. Let it come. Let the night take you. You are history now, and history is tired. It's late. The fire is nothing but a whispering heap of ash. The room smells of sweat, wet earth, boiled cabbage, and the faint spiritual anxiety of 1,000 unspoken sins. You lie there, eyes closed, but your brain, as always, insists on running medieval diagnostics. Is that your stomach gurgling or a death omen? Was that creak the wind or the wooden bones of the house preparing to collapse? Welcome back to your regularly scheduled 14th century existential dread. But tonight, we're not just worried about demons or dreams. Number tonight, we're talking about sinful sleep. Yes, even your unconscious hours were under surveillance by God, saints, the church, and probably your suspicious aunt with the lazy eye and a side hustle in curses. In the medieval world, sleep was not just rest, it was a moral battleground. Because, you see, sleep left you vulnerable, not only to thieves, rats, and demonic possession, but also to temptation. And temptation came in many forms: laziness, lust, excess, pride, all of them sins. So if you slept too much, sloth. If you enjoyed your dreams, lust. If you snored too loudly, pride. If you fell asleep during Mass, oh, forget it. Straight to hell, and possibly excommunicated. Monks wrote long, dusty treatises on the dangers of sleep. One text even warned that Satan could enter the soul through the unguarded door of slumber, which coincidentally also sounds like the title of a very niche horror film. Even saints weren't spared. They often feared sleep. Saint Jerome, cranky desert hermit and translator of the Bible, allegedly beat his chest with a rock to stay awake and avoid dreaming of women, which frankly feels a little extreme. But dedication is dedication. You, however, are not a saint. You're a peasant, or maybe a traveling tailor, or perhaps you're that guy who sells eels near the bridge. Either way, your bedtime routine is simple. Lie down on straw. Pray you don't die in your sleep. Hope your dreams are not heretical. Wake up. Repeat. Of course, not everyone feared sleep. Some rebels, heretics, or just very tired people embraced it. They believed dreams were gifts, visions, a way to escape the screaming monotony of peasant life. Because let's be honest, your waking hours involve mud, taxes, and your neighbor Gertrude complaining about her goats again. So, yes, a dream where you're a winged knight rescuing a princess made entirely of cheese? That's an upgrade. But here's the thing, some people really leaned into it. Enter the mystics. These weren't your average candle hugging monks. No, mystics were spiritual athletes. Sleep was their training ground. They fasted, prayed, meditated, then drifted into dreams and came back with stories, visions of golden cities, singing lights, endless stairs, fire that whispered. They wrote books, gained followers, occasionally got burned at the stake, occupational hazard. One nun claimed she dreamt of God's feet, enormous, glowing, covered in stars. Another swore she fell asleep and met angels who showed her a cosmic library full of books that hadn't been written yet. Naturally, no one believed her until 3 years later when one of the books mysteriously appeared in someone's barn. Coincidence? Maybe. Or maybe divine bedtime spoilers. Now, if your dreams were too vivid, too weird, too colorful, well, you might be a witch, or possessed, or French, which was sometimes worse. And if you had recurring dreams, you were marked, touched by fate, haunted. So what do? You visit the local priest. Again, he listens to your stories, nods gravely, sprinkles you with holy water, tells you to sleep on holy relics, a saint's finger bone maybe, or a piece of cloth that once touched a monk's sandal. Not comfortable, but very spiritually absorbent. And if that doesn't work, he gives you a list of banned dream foods. Yes, you heard right. Certain foods were believed to cause bad dreams, or worse, sinful dreams. Among them, onions cause anger, beans open the soul's door to impurity, garlic summons visions of betrayal, cheese induces erotic hallucinations, and flatulence, a cursed combination. The safest dinner? Boiled cabbage and prayer. Maybe a crust of dry bread, just enough to survive, not enough to sin. Because the worst dream, the most feared vision, was not hellfire or demons or shadowy goats with human eyes. It was pleasure. Yes, pleasure of the carnal sort. Because nothing scared medieval clergy more than someone enjoying themselves. Dreams of lust, mortal sin. Didn't matter if it was just a dream. Didn't matter if you woke up gasping and apologizing to the Virgin Mary. You'd still need to confess, and maybe fast, and definitely feel very, very guilty. Some even believed that demons, called incubi or succubi, would visit sleeping humans to tempt them. These spirits were shapeshifters. They could appear as someone you loved, or feared, or both. And if they succeeded, they'd steal a piece of your soul, or your willpower, or in some more creative texts, your hair. So you see, even in sleep, you were never alone, never safe, always watched, always judged. Tonight, as your eyes begin to flutter shut, your mind heavy with candle smoke and cabbage memories, you try not to think of them. The watchers, the whisperers, the things that come not to haunt you, but to tempt you. You pull the blanket higher, murmur a half remembered prayer. You're not afraid, not really. After all, it's just sleep, just history. And history doesn't bite much. Sleep now. You've sinned enough for today. You're asleep, or maybe not. It's hard to tell. Your eyes are closed. Your body is heavy. But your brain, that overcooked porridge between your ears, is buzzing like a cursed beehive. And tonight, it wants to dream about death. Yes, not exactly your choice, but remember, you're in the Middle Ages. Everyone dreams about death because everything around you, your friends, your food, the air, your own shadow, is trying to kill you. It's nothing personal, just tradition. Let's begin with the obvious plague. The Black Death didn't just sweep through Europe like a goth teenager on a tantrum. It rewrote dreams. It seeped into the subconscious like ink in water. If you were lucky enough to survive it, your dreams weren't dreams anymore. They were memorials. People dreamt of skulls, of fields full of bones, of angels with bleeding eyes, of coughing, so much coughing. Even centuries later, plague imagery haunted the collective medieval mind like a smudge on a church window. You couldn't sleep without wondering if the ache in your chest meant you were just tired or next. One woman in 1372 claimed she dreamed of a procession of the dead, skeletons dancing, singing psalms, carrying tiny lamps made of human fingernails. That dream spread like gossip. Everyone feared it. Some believed it was a prophecy. It wasn't. But when half your village disappears in a week, people become open to symbolism. Even children weren't spared. Imagine being 10 years old and dreaming of the Virgin Mary turning to ash, or of your parents' faces rotting off mid lullaby. That's not just trauma. That's Tuesday. Let's float now into a graveyard. Midnight, fog. The stone is cold beneath your bare feet. You're dreaming, obviously, or sleepwalking, doesn't matter. The moon is fat and judging you. Owls blink sideways. Somewhere a bell tolls 13 times, which should be impossible. You wander past crooked tombstones. The names are familiar. Family, friends, that guy from the tavern who owed you bread. And then you see it, your own grave. Fresh dirt, no flowers, just your name, poorly carved by a shaky hand. Below it, died from dreams. You wake up sweating. You tell the priest. He tells you to eat fewer onions and sleep with your back to the north, which brings us to the next point. Direction mattered. People believed that sleeping in the wrong direction could trigger nightmares, or worse, attract the attention of the dead. North was sacred, east was holy, south was suspicious. West was basically a highway for ghosts. So naturally, your tiny straw mattress is facing west. Congratulations. But it's not just plague and ghosts and cardinal directions. Sometimes your dreams were filled with judgment because medieval people were obsessed. obsessed with Judgment Day. Fire, trumpets, angels with swords, lists, so many lists. They believed that when you died, your soul would stand trial, your deeds as tallied like market debts, and sometimes, just sometimes, you got a preview of that final trial in your dreams. One man from 1428 wrote that he dreamed of standing naked before a giant book. A demon read his sins aloud in rhyme. Every time he objected, lightning struck his feet. He woke up to find that his bed had caught fire. Coincidence? Unlikely. In some communities, dreams of fire were taken so seriously they triggered town-wide fasts. That's right. One person dreams of hell, and suddenly no one's allowed bread or fun for a week. Because your dreams weren't yours. They were everyone's problem. And sometimes they were contagious. Ever heard of a dream epidemic? It happened more than once. One nun dreamed she was being chased by a red dog made of blood. The next day, 3 others had the same dream. Within a week, the entire convent was refusing to sleep. They chanted, fasted, slept in shifts, burned herbs. Eventually, they locked the dog dreamer in a storage room. She died of fright 2 nights later, or so they say. Let's drift now into your own dream. You're in a long hallway, made of wood and bones. The air smells like melted beeswax and guilt. Ahead, a door. You reach for it. It opens on its own. Inside, your family, all of them, eating dinner. But no one moves, no one speaks. They just stare. Their eyes are full of fire, not metaphorically, actual fire. You step back. You fall into a hole that tastes like iron and regret. You land in a chair, in a courtroom. A goat in a judge's wig bangs a gavel. You have been found guilty, it says. You ask, of what? It replies, you know. You wake up. Charming, but this isn't unusual. Not here, not now, because death isn't just around the corner. In the medieval world, it is the corner. Every cough, a warning. Every ache, a prophecy. Which is why people began to invite dreams of death. Better to know, better to prepare. Some even wore charms to encourage prophetic death dreams. Black stones, rings made of twisted hair. One man slept with a bone under his pillow for 30 years, claimed it let him chat with the dead. His neighbors did not visit often. There were rituals for this, methods. Some involved herbs, nightshade, henbane, poppy, not exactly safe but effective. Others involved fasting, chanting, and staring into candle flames until your brain stopped trying to be rational. Because once you accept that death is not the end, just the next act, you begin to dream differently. You welcome the skeletal horseman. You listen to what he says. Sometimes he just tells jokes, terrible ones. Other times he gives you warnings. And sometimes he just stands there, watching. So tonight, as your mind tiptoes across the thin line between reality and sleep, don't resist. Let it in. Let the dream take you. If it's dark, lean in. If it whispers, listen. If it laughs, well, laugh back. Politely. You're not dying. Not yet. You're just dreaming. Like they did. Like we all do. In the shadow of plague. in the chill of stone walls, in the silence between bells. Sleep now. History's bones are watching. You're not quite here anymore. Your limbs feel heavy, like they've been wrapped in wet wool and shame. Your thoughts drift like candle smoke curling above a forgotten altar. You've eaten too little, or too much, or the wrong kind of pickled something, and now your stomach bubbles with prophecy. You close your eyes, and behind them, images begin. But tonight's dream won't be of demons or death. Not yet, anyway. Tonight, you dream of monsters, not dragons. That would be too easy. Dragons, in the medieval mind, were straightforward: fire, wings, a sin, kill it with a sword, write a song about it later. No, you're dreaming of the other kind, the ones that don't live in caves or mountains or children's tales, the ones that live in the margins, literally, because back then, monsters weren't just in nightmares, they were in books. Monstrous men with dog heads, women with faces on their stomachs, giant snails attacking knights for no apparent reason. That one elephant someone drew that looks like a hairy beanbag with anxiety issues. These illustrations filled manuscripts, books hand copied by monks who, let's be honest, were bored, overworked, and probably a little unhinged. And at night, those images bled into dreams. You lie in your straw bed, half asleep, and suddenly you're walking through a forest made of parchment and ink. The trees are script, the birds chirp in Latin, and ahead of you, a creature. Its body is human. Its head is a cat. Its hands are backwards, and it whispers, "Turn the page." You wake up gasping, the taste of dust and vellum on your tongue, because to the medieval mind, monsters weren't fiction. They were warnings. They represented sin, desire, pride, places the church couldn't quite control. Monsters showed up in dreams when something in your soul had wandered off the path, when you'd eaten meat on a Friday, when you'd lied, when you'd thought about your neighbor's thighs too long. A dream of a monster meant your soul was being chewed on, slowly. Of course, you could try to fight it in your dream. Some did. One knight claimed to have vanquished a dream beast made of smoke and glass. He woke up with a broken arm. Coincidence? Maybe. Or maybe dream battles leave marks. People took this seriously. Entire books were written to catalog dream monsters, what they looked like, what they meant: a one-eyed ox, envy; a wolf with two mouths, greed; a woman with no skin, vanity; a headless child that won't stop singing, guilt, or possibly cheese. You never really knew, but you learned to sleep carefully. And some people, the brave ones, or maybe just the deeply weird, wanted to meet these monsters again. They believed if they conquered the beast in their sleep, they could free themselves from sin. So they summoned them. Yes, medieval dream summoning was a thing. You'd light a candle, fast for 3 days, chant a verse no one understood, sleep facing west, obviously, and then wait. One baker did this and swore he dreamed of a giant fly with human teeth. It told him to quit stealing flour. He did. He never had the dream again. Another woman dreamed of a man with a horse's body and a bird's head. It asked her what she feared most. She answered, everything. It nodded and walked away. Therapy was different back then. Sometimes the monsters weren't scary at all. Sometimes they were comforting, familiar, like fear wearing the face of someone you missed. That's the worst kind, really. The monster that looks like your mother, or your lost friend, or your own younger self, asking why you stopped singing. In those dreams, you don't run, you listen, and when you wake, you're not sure whether you've been warned or healed. But not everyone survived their monsters. One carpenter, strong, loyal, practical, dreamt of a staircase that led nowhere. Every night, he'd climb it, step by step, always hoping the top would change. It never did. One morning, he walked into the woods and never came back. They say he found the staircase. Dreams like that were contagious, haunting. Villagers whispered about shared visions, about dream paths, about the monsters that weren't just in your mind, but in the very fabric of sleep itself. And still, they slept. They had to, and so do you. Tonight, as you curl into your scratchy blanket and feel the cold air tug at your thoughts, you might meet something strange. It won't have a name, it might not have a face, but it will feel familiar. A shape in your mind, a sound, a question you forgot to ask. It won't bite unless you ask it to. So drift now. Let the monsters come. Let them whisper their strange truths. They are only old stories in new clothes. And you're a dreamer in a history made of sleep. Close your eyes. The page is turning. You are dreaming, or maybe remembering, or maybe both. Because in the medieval world, there is no difference between what happened, what you imagined, and what you were told by a man with a beard who once saw a glowing fish in a church window and took it very seriously. Tonight, your dream tastes metallic, smells like damp wool and melted tallow. You are walking, barefoot, of course, through an old monastery. The stones are cold, the walls whisper, and every door you pass opens just enough to suggest that you're welcome, but not safe. You are entering the mind of the mad. Let's talk about insanity, or what passed for it in the Middle Ages, because people dreamed of madness, and they feared it, and they also sometimes called it holiness. It all depended on the vibe. If you were poor and screamed at birds, madam. If you were rich and screamed at birds, eccentric. If you were a monk and screamed at birds in Latin while fasting, blessed. You see the pattern. Medieval madness wasn't just a sickness, it was a divine question, a mystery, something between a punishment and a gift. And sleep was when it leaked out. There were dreams that drove people mad, visions of endless tunnels, of walls closing in, of voices singing in reverse. People would wake up changed, quiet, or louder than ever, or suddenly obsessed with counting things. One man dreamed that every face in town was made of mirrors. He refused to speak for the rest of his life. Another dreamt of being swallowed by a book. He started writing letters to God every morning for 9 years. Some called them mad, others saints. Because to truly understand the divine, the church believed you had to let go of your senses. You had to lose your mind, just a little. That's why mystics were always on the edge, speaking in riddles, smiling at nothing, laughing during funerals, and weeping during feasts. They'd dream of impossible things, cities made of fire, staircases that folded into themselves, the Virgin Mary juggling stars. And when they shared these visions, they weren't dismissed, they were feared, because madness in dreams might be divine clarity, or it might be something darker. Let's pause here and talk about a real place, the Hospital of St. Mary of Bethlehem, later shortened to Bedlam. Yes, that Bedlam. Founded in London, it started as a modest religious institution, but by the 14th century, it became something else, a place for the disturbed, the possessed, the unquiet. People would bring their family members, whispering about nightmares that wouldn't stop, visions that clung like oil, sleep that turned to screaming. There were no treatments, only cells, chains, cold water, prayer. And sometimes, very rarely, someone would come out of Bedlam claiming they were cured. They weren't. They were just quieter. You, in your dream, walk the halls of this place now. You hear a woman muttering about a fish with a man's voice, a boy rocking back and forth, chanting verses in a language no one recognizes, a priest carving prayers into the wall with his fingernails. They all dreamed too much, and now they can't wake up. But here's the thing. Medieval people didn't think madness was always bad. Sometimes they believed it brought you closer to God. Because what is sanity if not a cage? And what is dreaming if not stepping outside it? So people courted madness. They fasted, they isolated, they meditated for hours, staring at blank walls until the walls blinked back, all to trigger visions, divine confusion, holy unraveling. Some found peace, others found the edge, slipped, and never returned. And yet stories of their dreams, chaotic, wild, impossible, lived on. A knight who saw a wheel turning inside his own chest, a nun who dreamt that every tree she touched turned into her dead brother, a peasant who spoke in perfect Latin during sleeping and in gibberish when awake. Madness, miracle, the line was blurry and beautifully medieval. Tonight, as you begin to drift again, your body still, your thoughts half dissolved, you might find yourself walking a hallway. It could be Bedlam. It could be your childhood home. It could be a dream monastery made entirely of salt. You don't need to know where you are. You just need to listen. Because the voice that greets you, the one behind the door that opens without sound, might speak madness, or truth, or both. It may tell you that reality is not fixed, that dreams matter more than waking, that the world was always this strange, and it's only in sleep that we see it clearly. Will you believe it? You don't have to. You just have to remember, or forget. Either works. Breathe now. Let the madness pass through you like smoke through stone. It will leave you changed, but only a little. Sleep, dream, drift. It's cold again. Your blanket has bunched around your knees. The fire is dead. Your left foot is hanging off the straw pile like it's begging to be nibbled by something unseen. You don't move, because in this dream, stillness is safety. You've entered the world of medieval omens, signs, portents, warnings whispered through dreams, like messages sewn into the seams of your soul. Tonight, everything means something, and nothing is just what it is. You dream of a crow flying backward, bad harvest. You dream of three teeth falling out, a death in the family. You dream of a fish singing hymns, possibly divine favor, or an early sign of scurvy. Because you see, back then, dreams were a form of communication, not from your subconscious, but from the universe, or God, or the devil, or your mother in law, depending on the mood. Dreams were read like letters, and often taken more seriously than actual conversations. There were dream books, entire volumes, hand copied by monks with inky fingers and sore backs that tried to explain it all. For example, dreaming of gold, danger, dreaming of fire, change, dreaming of a snake, betrayal, or healing, or both, because consistency is for modern people. Dreaming of your own hands falling off, you need to stop stealing bread, Thomas. Even animals in dreams had meaning. A fox in your dream, someone close is lying to you. A dog, loyalty. Unless the dog is speaking Latin, then it's demonic. A goat, either lust, the devil, or just a goat. Medieval symbolism isn't always helpful. You once dreamed of a rooster standing atop a church tower, screaming like a man. The local priest told you it meant you had pride in your heart. You weren't sure what that meant, but you gave away your second best spoon just to be safe. Because the truth is, you don't want to misread a dream. You don't want to ignore an omen. People who did, well, they didn't last long. There was a farmer, Bertram, who dreamed of rain falling upward. He laughed about it. The next day, his ox trampled him. Coincidence? Number? The villagers decided the ox had been possessed by inverse weather spirits. Naturally. Then there was the baker's daughter, dreamed of her teeth crumbling like ash. 2 weeks later, she married a man with one eyebrow and a sinister aura. Lived miserably ever after. Should have listened to the dream. Dreams were warnings. If not obeyed, they were punishable by fate. So what did people do? They made rituals. You don't just wake up and shrug off a dream. No, no. You report it. Immediately. Preferably to someone holier than you. If your dream was especially strange, you'd tell the whole village. At sunrise, in the town square, with trembling hands and dramatic pauses. And everyone would nod solemnly and pretend they understood. Sometimes the dream would be interpreted on the spot. Other times, it would spark a week of fasting, or goat sacrifices, or banning apples because someone dreamt one turned into a toad. And don't even think about ignoring a prophetic dream. People who did that, they got followed by crows, or shadows, or guilt. You knew one man who dreamed he would fall from a high place. He stayed on the ground for a month, then fell off a stool while eating, broke his arm. The village built a shrine to the stool. Even everyday dreams became sources of anxiety. Dreaming of water? That meant something emotional. Probably. Unless it was still water, then maybe death, or peace, or stagnant marriage. Dreaming of flying? Pride. Definitely pride, or divine favor, or gas. And of course, if you dreamed of falling, oh, you were doomed. That was the dream of sinners. Falling meant you were on the wrong path. You'd better confess and give away your third best spoon. You've got too many spoons anyway. Some people kept dream journals, not for self reflection, for protection. They believed that if they wrote down the dream and prayed over it, they could contain it, trap the omen like a butterfly in a jar of holy water. Others burned their bed sheets because dreams, you see, could linger. If the dream was particularly intense, and especially if it involved blood, fire, or a naked relative covered in bees, it might be attached to the physical space. That's why some people never slept in the same place twice, not for luxury, for safety. And here you are now, once again tucked into your lumpy straw bed, trying to remember whether the sound you just heard was a mouse or a sign. You close your eyes, try to dream of something nice, a tree, a clean spoon, a goat with no symbolic weight. But instead, your mind conjures a vision, a road that stretches forever, black stones, crimson sky. A man made of clocks walks beside you and says, "Time is folding." You wake, and now you wonder, what does that mean? You won't know, not until it happens. Sleep now. The signs are always there. We just don't always read them in time. You are alone in the dark. But of course, you're not. Not really. Because in the medieval world, no one is ever truly alone. Not in a house, not in a forest, not even in your own thoughts, especially not in your dreams, because someone is always watching. Not God. He's busy. Not the saints. They're judging. No, it's someone else. The dead, yes. Tonight's dream belongs to them. Welcome to a world where the veil between sleep and death was thinner than a communion wafer left in the rain, where dreams were not just about demons, omens, or sin, but about the restless souls of those who couldn't quite let go. You're dreaming now. You walk through a field, empty, except for the fog. There's a figure ahead. You call out. They turn. You recognize their face, barely. A neighbor, maybe. A friend long gone. Or someone from that one market day you don't talk about anymore. They open their mouth, but nothing comes out. In the medieval mind, this was not a simple dream. This was a visit, because the dead had things to say. You see, people believed that the souls of the departed could communicate through dreams, especially if they died suddenly, or violently, or badly. And in the Middle Ages, everyone died badly. So dreams were filled with them, these quiet visitors, pale, worn, asking for prayers, for forgiveness, for socks. Yes, socks. One dream account from 1314 tells of a dead man who visited his brother every night for a week, asking for warm socks to be buried with. The brother complied. The dream stopped. Make of that what you will. But it wasn't always so simple. Sometimes the dead didn't ask. Sometimes they just watched, stood at the edge of the dream, not speaking, not blinking, just watching. It was considered a warning, a sign that something was left unresolved, that some debt, emotional, spiritual, or monetary, had not been paid. So, what did people do? They lit candles, paid priests, prayed harder, built shrines, dug up old family secrets, left out bread and wine, or milk and honey, depending on the ghost's dietary needs. Because ignoring the dead, that was dangerous. You've heard the stories. A woman dreamed her dead mother appeared in her room, silently pointing to a locked chest. She ignored it. Weeks later, they opened the chest. Inside, a confession and a necklace that belonged to the neighbor. That escalated quickly. Another tale tells of a monk who dreamed of a faceless child every night. He asked for guidance. The abbot told him to fast. He did. The dreams became worse. On the seventh night, the child handed him a mirror. He looked and screamed. No one knows what he saw. Dreams like these weren't just unsettling. They were considered sacred, a burden, a task. Because when the dead speak to you, you are now a bridge, a translator, a spiritual postal worker. And if you failed to deliver the message, the dreams would return, louder, heavier, more real. Some people stopped sleeping entirely, but not you. You lie here still, soft breaths in the dark, waiting. And tonight, someone may come, someone familiar. You'll know them, not by face perhaps, but by presence. They might not speak, they might just sit or reach for your hand, and when you wake, you'll remember nothing except the sense that something old has shifted. This is why the medieval world feared night, not because it was dark or cold or filled with rodents the size of domestic cats, but because night opened the door to the past, to grief, to all the things you thought were finished, buried, forgotten. And in that silence between breaths, sleep carries them back. So tonight, when you drift, don't resist. Let them come. Let them sit by the fire of your mind. Let them tell you what they could not say in life. You don't need to speak. You only need to listen. Sleep. They've waited long enough. The room is still. Not quiet. No. Stillness isn't silence in the Middle Ages. It's a kind of waiting. The wind holds its breath. The walls creak like old knees. The fire has burned itself into a faint orange ghost in the hearth. You are wrapped in a blanket that barely counts as fabric, more whole than cloth. You itch in 3 places, 2 of which you cannot reach without serious negotiation. But it's fine. This is peace, by medieval standards. And tonight, your dream is about judgment, not divine judgment. We've had that. This is social, because in the Middle Ages, you weren't just afraid of sin, or spirits, or goats with suspicious eyes. You were afraid of what people thought. And that fear, that deep daily anxiety, followed you into your dreams. You dreamt of being laughed at, of being naked in church, of losing a shoe in front of the Lord's steward, of saying the wrong thing at the wrong time in front of someone who could have you whipped, fined, or worst of all, gossiped about. That's right. Tonight's nightmare isn't hell, it's public embarrassment. Because medieval society was built on layers, not just rich and poor, but rich, poor, and poor, rich and wholly poor, and sinful rich, and merchant who's actually broke but wears nice shoes. And those layers, oh, they were sharp, and everyone was watching. Your place in the world was fixed like a bad tooth. You didn't move socially unless you married up, bribed someone, or found a very specific loophole involving sheep, fire, and a misplaced tithe. So you dreamt. You dreamt of being seen, not as you are, but too clearly. A woman once wrote of a dream where she stood before her entire town holding a basket of rotten fruit. No one said anything. They just stared. When she looked down, the fruit was gone, replaced with stones. She woke up sobbing. Another man dreamt he spilled ink on a noble's shoes and was forced to eat the page he'd been copying. Woke up chewing his own bedsheet. And you've had them too. Dreams where your words melt in your mouth, where your clothes turn to smoke, where your family shakes their heads, disappointed, again. These aren't demons, they're expectations, and sometimes those are worse. The church didn't help. It told you to be humble, but not too humble, obedient, but not foolish, proud, but only of the God, not of your homemade turnip stew, even though it was genuinely good. People went to bed every night, unsure if they were good enough to be respected, to be saved, to be remembered. So dreams became rehearsals, silent plays where your brain tried to make sense of a world that never made sense. You dreamt of being rich, only to wake up and step in someone else's mud. You dreamt of being praised, only to open your eyes and hear your neighbors shouting about stolen chickens again. You dreamt of being seen, and then went about your day trying not to be noticed, because being noticed could mean being judged, and being judged could mean trouble. So you became small, polite, careful. You watched what you said, what you wore, what you dreamed. Because in some towns, even your dreams could be held against you. I dreamt I flew like a bird, you say. That's pride, they whisper. I dreamt of a feast, you say. That's gluttony, they warn. I dreamt of dancing. Ah, now you're definitely a heretic. People learned to hide their dreams, or forget them, or lie. One woman told her priest she only dreamed of scripture. He smiled. She did not confess the part where the angels were all her exes, and the book of Psalms turned into a love letter. Dreams were mirrors, but also windows. And in a world of thatched roofs and thick walls, windows were suspicious. So tonight, as you lay there, your body heavy, your heart quieter than usual, your dream comes slow. It's a gathering. You walk into a hall. Everyone you've ever known is there, silent, staring, waiting. You open your mouth, no sound. You look down. Your hands are covered in flour, or ash, or blood. You try to explain, but no one moves. Then one person smiles, and then you wake, not afraid, just seen. These are the dreams that stay with you, not the demons, not the fire, but the faces, the rooms, the feeling of being watched and not knowing whether it was love or judgment. Let it pass. You are still here, still dreaming, still wrapped in time's woolen silence. Sleep now. Tomorrow they'll talk. But tonight, they listen. The wind is whispering again. Not words exactly, more like a soft hiss, the sound of old parchment turning itself. the sound of someone almost saying your name. You are still, wrapped in cloth, curled like an ancient manuscript forgotten on a shelf. And tonight, your dream is beautiful, but not in the way you'd hope, because in the Middle Ages, beauty was never safe. Number beauty was dangerous, tempting, distracting, possibly heretical, and yet everyone dreamed of it. Tonight you will too. You dream of a garden. Not just a garden, the garden. Trees bent with glowing fruit, flowers you don't recognize but somehow know, a fountain made of light, birds that sing in harmony. You walk barefoot on grass that feels like velvet and smells like honey. This is no ordinary dream. This is paradise, or so it seems, because in medieval theology, dreaming of paradise was not a simple gift. It was a test. Were you dreaming of Eden, or were you being tricked? Because not all beauty came from God. Sometimes it came from the other side. The church warned that Satan was clever. He didn't always show up with horns and a pitchfork. Sometimes he appeared in your dreams as a beautiful man, or a radiant woman, or a garden that promised too much. You'd wake up smiling, and then feel the guilt creep in, because even joy, if unearned, was suspicious. There was a bishop, name lost to time, who reportedly dreamt of angels dancing around a golden tree. He woke up and ordered all the trees near the church to be cut down, just in case, said the devil was hiding in the shade. A little dramatic, but very on brand for the time. People feared pleasure, not just physical, but aesthetic. A dream too vivid, too lovely, too sweet was assumed to be a trap. So naturally, those dreams were the most powerful. A nun in 1297 wrote that she dreamt of a vast meadow filled with singing roses. Each rose opened its petals to reveal the face of someone she loved. She said it made her weep for 3 days. The priest called it emotional gluttony. She wrote the dream down anyway, buried it in the garden. It was found 300 years later. The roses still grew there. So, what do you do with a dream that feels good? Do you trust it? Do you analyze it? Or do you just feel it and let it be? That was the medieval dilemma, because sometimes people believed these beautiful dreams were gifts from saints or even from God, not warnings, but encouragements, rewards for suffering. Imagine living every day in mud and ash and cold, and then dreaming of silk and sunshine and clean, flowing water. Wouldn't you cling to that? Some did. They built little dream altars, simple things, a smooth stone, a bit of ribbon, a carved symbol no one else recognized, hidden in pockets, tucked into blankets, quiet reminders of the beauty they saw while asleep. Others composed dream prayers, not asking for guidance, just for something lovely. Let me dream of the stars, one wrote. Let me taste a pear that never rots. Let me hold the hand of someone who doesn't die. And when those dreams came, they were whispered about, treasured, because in a world where beauty was rare and fleeting and often punished, dreams were the safest place to keep it. Tonight, you feel it too. Your breath slows, your body lightens, and suddenly you are somewhere soft, a hillside perhaps, wind in your hair, a bell in the distance. You are not alone, but you are not afraid. Someone walks beside you. You don't see their face, but you know you are known. This is not theology. This is not fear. This is not Latin carved into stone and judged by candlelight. This is just a feeling, a peace you can't explain. And it is beautiful. And for once, just once, you do not question it. You let the dream be what it is. And when you wake, maybe you'll forget, or maybe it'll stay in the corner of your heart, or under your pillow, or in the way you breathe, just a little deeper. Sleep now. Not all dreams are warnings, some are gifts. And tonight it is your turn to receive. You are floating again. Not fast, not high, just slowly, as if your thoughts have unhooked themselves from your bones and begun to drift like lazy lanterns over a black lake. You aren't sure where you are or when, but the air smells of beeswax and damp stone, and the world feels old, older than memory, older than language. Welcome to tonight's dream. Tonight you dream of time, but not the way you know it. Not clocks, not calendars. Number, you dream of the way time felt in the Middle Ages. Slow, circular, and slightly suspicious. Because in that world, time was not a tool. It was a presence, and it did not like to be watched. Medieval people didn't live by the second, or even the minute. They lived by bells, church bells, prayer bells, market bells, tolling through the fog like voices from God reminding you that something, somewhere, was always expected of you. And sleep? Sleep was that unofficial hour, not counted, not measured, just allowed, if you were lucky. Time in dreams was even stranger. People wrote of dreams that lasted years, whole lives lived in a single night. One man claimed to have grown old in a dream, died, and been reborn, only to wake up in his own bed with a sore knee and a craving for almonds. Others swore they dreamed of time stopping, entire villages frozen, except for a single bird circling the sky forever. Some even believed that dreams allowed them to visit other times. Yes, dream travel. A weaver from Ghent claimed she dreamed of ancient Rome, woke up reciting phrases in broken Latin, was accused of heresy, then hired by a priest to transcribe scrolls. Medieval career advice: dream boldly. A monk once dreamed of a future where people floated in metal carts and held glowing stones to their ears. He wrote it down, was laughed at, burned the page. No one laughs now. Dreams bent time, rewrote it, or ignored it entirely. You dream now of a road. It stretches forever, but your feet never move. The sky changes. Morning, night, rain, stars, snow, but the road stays the same. You pass yourself walking the other way. You nod. You do not stop. Because in the medieval dreamscape, time is not linear. It is a spiral, a wheel, a song you keep forgetting and relearning. The church tried to contain time, liturgical calendars, feasts, fasts, the hours. They structured the day like a ladder: matins, lauds, prime, terce, sext, none, vespers, compline. You weren't supposed to sleep through any of it, but of course you did. Everyone did, even monks, especially monks. They dreamed during Compline, during Vespers, during sermons. Some claimed their sleep was blessed, that visions came easier when the body was pretending to listen, and time, that rigid, ringing taskmaster, would loosen its grip. Some woke up with new ideas, a hymn, a recipe, a design for a better boot. Others woke up screaming, convinced they'd miss their own funeral. Dreams didn't care for schedule, and neither, if you're honest, do you. Tonight, your dream stretches long, a corridor of hours. You pass through moments like rooms, a childhood memory, a forgotten scent, that one word you never said. Time stutters, repeats, skips ahead. You see your own face, young, old, asleep, awake. You wave at yourself, you wave back. This is the kind of dream no priest can explain, no scroll can interpret, not a vision, not a warning, just a reminder. That time is not what you think, that maybe, just maybe, this dream you're having now, you've had it before and you'll have it again. And maybe somewhere, someone else is dreaming you. Let that thought sit beside you now, like a quiet candle that doesn't flicker. Let it soften your grip on time, on control, on the ticking of anything. You are not late. You are not early. You are exactly when you are supposed to be. And sleep is right on time. You're lying still, still as a prayer left unsaid. The wind has stopped. The shadows have curled up in the corners of the room like tired cats. And your thoughts are floating again, not drifting gently this time, but swimming like strange fish in a deep, cold river. Tonight, your dream doesn't have a shape. Not yet. It has a sound, because tonight you are dreaming of voices, and in the Middle Ages, voices in your dreams weren't always just echoes of memory. Sometimes they were real. You see, the medieval world didn't draw clear lines between thought and spirit, sound and presence. If you heard something while asleep, it wasn't just a dream, it was a visitation. You dream now of a hallway, long, cold. Your footsteps echo, though you're not sure you're walking. You hear a voice. Behind you, number in front, number inside. It says your name, slowly, carefully, like it's holding something fragile in its mouth. You do not answer. You were taught not to, because not all voices in dreams should be answered. The church had rules about this. If a voice called your name 3 times in a dream, and you responded all 3 times, it was believed you would die within the year. Harsh, yes, but it kept things simple. Voices in dreams came in many forms. Some were familiar. A loved one long gone, telling you to stop worrying. Some were strange. A child you've never met reciting scripture in a language you don't know. And some were impossible, like the voice that once told a man, "You are the silence that God forgot." He never slept again. Monks, of course, cataloged these voices. They wrote long entries about dream sounds, angelic choirs, demonic laughter, whispers behind walls, bells that rang without cause. One friar claimed he heard his future self in a dream. The voice warned him not to travel east. He did anyway, was never seen again. Another claimed to have heard the Virgin Mary humming, no melody, just humming. Said it shook him to his core. He spent the next 10 years painting churches, poorly. There was even a belief, quiet, unapproved, passed among nervous scholars, that God Himself sometimes whispered to people in dreams, but only if they were already half mad, which in fairness was most of the population. Some voices in dreams offered comfort, soft lullabies, prayers, a poem once read aloud by a mother now long buried. Others, threats, instructions, nonsense repeated until it turned sinister. One farmer dreamt that a voice whispered the same word into his ear every night. Lower. He started digging, kept digging, found a small box filled with old bones and coins. He stopped sleeping after that. People tried to protect themselves. They wore charms, not just on their bodies, but in their beds, rings under pillows, crosses sewn into nightshirts. One man slept with a potato by his head for a decade, claiming it absorbed the voices. It did not, but it sprouted beautifully. Some covered their ears. Some slept on one side only, believing the devil whispered exclusively into the left ear. No official statement from the devil was ever issued, of course. And then there were those who wanted the voices. They fasted, prayed, slept with their heads facing east, hoping for a message. One woman claimed she heard a voice recite the recipe for a healing potion in perfect rhyme. She sold it at market. It cured nothing, but it tasted like hope. You now, here in the heavy dark, hear something too. Maybe it's the wind, maybe it's your memory, rehearsing old regrets in a new voice. Or maybe it's something else. You don't open your eyes. You don't move. You listen. It's a soft voice, softer than thought, and it says, "You're safe." Just that. You do not speak. You do not respond. You simply breathe. Because the truth is, in this world, the dream world of the Middle Ages, sometimes the voices were not warnings. They were reminders that something out there, somewhere, remembered your name and said it with care. Let the voice go now. Let it echo gently, then dissolve into the air. You are still here, and sleep is not silence. It is song. Let it play. Let it carry you. The voice will return when you are ready. For now, sleep. You've heard enough. You don't know how long you've been lying here. The room has melted into the night. The walls no longer solid. The corners no longer important. Even your body feels optional. You are just thought, wrapped in sleep. But your mind, your faithful, fidgeting medieval mind, has taken you somewhere again. Tonight, it's not a dream of monsters, or sins, or gardens, or prophecy. Tonight, you dream of light. And in the Middle Ages, light in a dream meant many things. It could mean salvation, revelation, illness, fever, madness, grace, or simply that someone had left a candle burning too close to your head again. You see, Medieval people were obsessed with light, not the everyday kind, but the divine kind, the holy glow, the warm shimmer that meant you are seen, you are chosen, you are possibly a little bit on fire. It was everywhere in dreams, light that came through walls, light that spoke, light that bled from wounds or eyes or forgotten tombs, and people remembered these dreams. They wrote them down, sketched them, tried to paint them poorly with ground minerals and misplaced hope. One nun dreamt she held a piece of sunlight in her hands. It turned into a loaf of bread. She woke up with flour under her nails. Coincidence? Maybe. One monk dreamt he stood in darkness until a small blue flame hovered before him. It whispered his sins, one by one, until he began to glow. When he woke, his hair had gone white. People feared dark dreams, yes, but bright dreams? Those were worse, because a dream filled with light might mean you had been touched, chosen, burdened. And when you're a muddy, hungry, half literate farmer trying to keep your goat alive, being chosen isn't always a blessing. People tried to interpret these glowing dreams. Was it an angel, a sign, or just the moon hitting your eyelids through a crack in the roof? You never knew, and no one wanted to say the wrong thing because claiming divine dreams was dangerous. Say too much, and you're a prophet. Say it badly, and you're a heretic. Say it at the wrong time, and you're ashes. So most people just kept the light to themselves, tucked it away in their hearts, their prayers, their eyes. You once had a dream of light, didn't you? Yes, you were standing in a chapel, no walls, no roof, just a space where the light came from everywhere. It didn't burn, it didn't speak, it just was. You stood there, barefoot, blinking, feeling the light pass through you like wind through linen. And when you woke, you felt quiet, not afraid, just full. That's the kind of dream that never quite fades, the kind you carry like a small lamp tucked behind your ribs. The church wrote about dreams like these. They called them visione lucis, visions of light. Sometimes they believed they were glimpses of heaven, other times a warning from above, and sometimes just light, nothing more, nothing less, because sometimes things simply are. Tonight, you are dreaming of light again. It doesn't say anything. It doesn't ask anything. It just hovers, software warm, steady. You move closer, not to understand, not to control, just to feel, because deep down, beyond all the prayers and rules and fear, even medieval souls just wanted to be held by something that made sense. And this dream, it makes sense. Let the light stay. Let it warm the chill that never quite leaves your bones. Let it sit with you until you fall back into the dark, because it will. And that's all right. The light never really leaves. It just waits. Sleep now. Glow quietly. You are being watched. But for once, that's not a warning. It's a comfort. You're not sure what time it is anymore. Not that it matters. Time in this dream is soft, like wet cloth. It wraps around you and lets you forget things, names, days, fears, your exact relationship to reality. You're just here, somewhere between. Tonight, you're dreaming of weather. Yes, weather. Because in the Middle Ages, weather wasn't just sky. It wasn't just rain or wind or the eternal disappointment of soggy boots. No, weather had meaning, and in dreams, it had power. To dream of rain, that could mean cleansing or loss, or that your roof was leaking again and your subconscious was just being practical. To dream of thunder, a warning, a sin approaching, or a reminder that someone was very angry in heaven. To dream of snow, purity, or loneliness, or the cold hand of the Virgin Mary turning her back. You get the idea. Tonight, your dream is full of wind. It howls like a hungry dog, whistles through cracks in the walls of your sleeping mind, lifts your hair though there's no air. You walk through a field, one you know but don't recognize. The sky above you spins too fast, like it's trying to fall. And then a storm, but not a storm made of water. This one is made of voices. It doesn't rain, it speaks. And you stand there blinking into the whirlwind of words, trying to catch one, just one. But the wind is greedy tonight. You see, in medieval dream theory, yes, that was a thing. Weather was not just environment, it was emotion. Dreams of storms meant inner chaos, guilt, fury. Or if you were a monk, probably sexual temptation. Everything was sexual temptation to monks. Dreams of fog, doubt, confusion, secrets not yet ready to be told. Dreams of sun, rare, treasured, but also suspicious. Too much brightness, pride. A nobleman once dreamed of endless rain. He took it as a sign that his soul was flooded with sorrow. He spent the next week walking barefoot through puddles to purify himself, caught a cold, died, was praised for his humility. Dreams of lightning were the worst. It was believed that if you dreamed of being struck by lightning, you would soon have a sudden change in fortune, usually not the good kind. One woman dreamed lightning split her house in two. A week later, her husband left her. With the goat, which hurt more, and dreams of wind, that was considered the breath of fate. Not quite a blessing, not quite a curse, just a push, a shift, a whisper in motion. Some said it meant change was coming. Others believed it was the soul trying to leave the body in the night, frustrated by closed windows or too much cabbage at dinner. And sometimes people dreamed of weather that didn't exist, rain that moved upward, snow that melted into music, clouds made of faces, winds that tasted like honey. They woke up changed, quiet, shaken, because even back then, dreams were allowed to be weird. You, now, are deep in your own storm. You stand in the middle of a medieval market, but the stalls are made of clouds. The bread is steam. The apples float. People speak, but their words come out as rain. You open your mouth and swallow a thunderclap. It tastes like childhood and fear and hope. When you wake, if you remember, you'll tell no one, because no one talks about dreams like this. Too strange, too soft, too dangerous. You roll over now in your straw bed, and the wind in your dream rolls with you. It tugs at your thoughts, pulls a little harder. You let it, because maybe tonight is the night something changes. Maybe tonight the storm inside finally moves on. Sleep now. Let the wind have its way. You're not meant to hold everything forever. Some thoughts are meant to fly. The fire is long gone. Ashes now, cold and still, like forgotten thoughts curled up in the corners of your memory. Your breath is slow. Your hands are still. Your body is sinking into the mattress, or maybe into the earth. It's hard to tell the difference in the dark. And tonight, your dream takes a new turn. You dream of animals, not pets, not companions. Number tonight, you dream of medieval beasts, the ones with fur and feathers and meaning. Because in the Middle Ages, animals weren't just animals, they were symbols, and in your dreams, they meant everything. To dream of a wolf, beware betrayal. To dream of a cat, deception. To dream of a dove, maybe peace. Maybe someone's watching you while you sleep. Medieval interpretation was flexible like that. And if the animal talked, you needed to confess immediately before breakfast. People saw animals in dreams as messengers, not from nature, from the beyond. You see, the medieval bestiary, a kind of holy animal encyclopedia, was more moral than biological. The lion represented Christ, the snake was the devil, the owl was ignorance, the pelican, sacrifice. Also, oddly affectionate toward its young, which was considered suspicious. In dreams, animals appeared as tests. One knight dreamed of riding a horse with no eyes. He interpreted it as a sign to lead his men into battle without fear. He died 5 minutes in, but they named a cheese after him. A nun once dreamed of being followed by a bear wearing a crown. She took a vow of silence. People respected her deeply, except for the bear, who returned in her dreams wearing shoes. She later became a saint of something. No one remembers what. Some dream animals weren't real. The basilisk, half rooster, half snake, all drama. The griffin, proud, royal, and judgmental. The werewolf, dangerous, yes, but in some tales, tragically misunderstood. A cursed night, a failed ritual, a lonely howl beneath a bleeding moon. People feared dreaming of wolves most of all, because wolves, in their dreams, always came too close. They didn't chase, they followed, stared, whispered your name without moving their mouths. You dream of one now. Its eyes glint in the moonlight. Its breath fogs the space between you. You can't move, but you're not afraid. You ask, "What do you want?" It tilts its head and says, "You know." Then it's gone. That's the thing about medieval dreams. They weren't always meant to be understood. Sometimes they were just stories your soul told itself in the dark. And animals made good characters. Dreams of birds were especially popular. A sparrow fluttering inside a chapel, longing, a raven sitting on your shoulder, secrets, a peacock screaming from a mountaintop, vanity, a goose singing lullabies in Latin, either divine grace or a very specific cheese dream. People loved dreaming of deer, gentle, silent, always running. A monk once dreamt of chasing a white stag through the forest. It led him to a tree shaped like a cross. He woke up crying, became a hermit, lived under that tree for the rest of his life. Dreams like that didn't scare people, they changed them. You wonder now, in your half dreaming state, if you'll see something tonight. A fox, maybe, laughing, a dog looking like someone you lost, a fish floating in the air, mouthing words you haven't heard yet. Whatever it is, you'll remember the feeling more than the form, because in this world, this strange, sleeping medieval mind world, animals are not animals. They are messages wearing fur. They are questions with teeth. They are truths that cannot speak plain. You breathe in. A feather lands on your chest. You're not sure if it's real. You don't check. Sleep deeper. Let the creatures come. Let them show you what cannot be said. You don't need to understand, only to see. They're watching too, and they know you're floating again. But this time, the air feels heavier, thicker, like you're moving through ink. The world around you is slow, the kind of slow that isn't peaceful, but old. Like everything in this dream has been waiting a long time for you to arrive. And tonight, you dream of rooms, but not the ones you know, not bedrooms, or kitchens, or chapels. These are stranger rooms, secret rooms, rooms that shouldn't be there, because in the Middle Ages, to dream of a room, especially one you'd never seen before, was a revelation. Rooms in dreams were places of judgment, or truth, or punishment, or memory. It depended on the furniture. You dream now of a door, wood, iron hinges, no handle. It opens when you think about opening it. That's never a good sign. Inside, the room is dim, stone walls, a single chair, a bowl of water, and a mirror. You don't remember walking in, but you're already inside. Medieval people dreamed of rooms like this all the time. One monk described a dream where he was led down a hallway by a silent boy holding a candle. Each door led to a different version of himself, older, younger, asleep, weeping, laughing. He woke up and refused to speak for 40 days. Another woman dreamed of a room filled with clocks. None of them worked, except one, shaped like her heart, beating just a little too fast. Rooms were tests. They represented the soul. To dream of a locked room, you were hiding something. To dream of many rooms, you were searching. To dream of an empty room, you had nothing left. You see, medieval theology taught that the soul itself was structured like a house, full of chambers, some open, some sealed, some still under construction by grace or shame or sin. Dreams, they believed, allowed you to walk those halls, to see what God saw, and tonight you do. You move through the room. The floor is warm. The air is still. You approach the mirror. It does not show you. It shows a memory, but not yours. A woman kneeling in a field, hands muddy, singing. A child hiding under a table while something burns. A knight with no sword, weeping into his hands. You don't understand? That's all right. Understanding isn't required in this dream, only witnessing. You move to the bowl of water. Inside, your reflection, not as you are, as you were, or could be, or will be. It flickers, then vanishes. The room hums. You leave. There's another door. This one is made of bone. You do not open it. Some rooms are not for you. You see, medieval dreamers often described these places, rooms they knew didn't exist, but returned to night after night, rooms where time bent, where voices echoed, where something waited behind the curtain that never moved. They believed these rooms were parts of the afterlife, a preview, or a warning, or a gift. One priest wrote of dreaming the same corridor for 20 years. He walked a little further each time. At the end, he found a window. He never shared what he saw through it. He died the next week. Dreams of rooms are always waiting. And so, you walk out now, back into the dark. But part of you is still in there. That's how these dreams work. They give you a piece of the room and take a piece of you. So tonight, as your breath slows and your thoughts begin to dissolve into the soft folds of the blanket, you remember you've been somewhere, you've seen something, and now the room is part of you. And maybe, just maybe, when you dream again, it will still be there, waiting. Rooms do that. Sleep now. The door is closed, but not locked. You've gone quiet now, not just your voice, which you never really used here, but your thoughts. Even they have curled up like cats and tucked their tails beneath them. You are somewhere else again. And tonight, you dream of rituals, not the kind with torches and drums. Not yet. These are private rituals, the kind you do in the dark, alone, the ones you don't talk about. You see, in the Middle Ages, everyone had rituals, little things you did before bed, not to sleep better, but to survive the night, because night was when things came, and the only defense, repetition, recitation, rhythm. Before sleep, a woman might trace a cross over her chest 9 times, always 9, because 8 wasn't enough and 10 was greedy. A boy might kiss the wooden beam above his head 3 times, because that was where he saw the angel once. A baker might sleep with his hands in prayer, even when exhausted, because his mother said it kept the devil from stealing his breath. They never questioned these things, because they worked, until they didn't. You now feel the need for one, a ritual, something to hold on to. You check the corners of your room, not with your eyes, with your mind. They're still there, as they were, as they always are. No changes. Good. You press your feet together. An old trick keeps your soul from wandering. You exhale, counting backward from 7. Why 7? No reason, except it feels safe. You touch your wrist to your mouth, softly, just once, because someone long ago told you that's where dreams enter the blood. And now you're ready. Tonight's dream is quiet. It comes not with images, but with the actions. You light a candle, though there is no flame. You sweep a floor, though there is no dust. You open a window, though there is no wall. And outside, nothing. Just sky, endless and soft. You do not feel fear because the ritual has prepared you. This is the thing medieval people understood better than anyone, that fear doesn't disappear. You just learn how to meet it, how to speak to it gently, how to leave milk out for it by the door, how to make a place for it in your bed. Because if you don't, it finds its own way in. So they had rituals and prayers and whispers. One woman buried a pebble beneath her pillow every night, then threw it into the river each morning. She called it carrying the weight for a while. One priest washed his hands 7 times before sleep, said it kept the sins from following him into his dreams. One child's, orphaned, quiet, recited the names of stars, not the real ones, the ones he made up. He believed they were listening. Maybe they were. You have rituals too. You've just forgotten them. But tonight, your body remembers. The turn of your head, the way you pull the blanket, the half sigh you let slip. That's all ritual. That's all defense. And it's working. The room feels safe now. The dream waits just beyond the edge of your thoughts. You've done what you needed to do. Sleep comes, not quickly, but steadily, like a candle going out in slow motion. This is your final act before sleep, the last step, the door that closes with no sound, the thing you do without knowing why, but always, always do. And on the other side, rest. Sleep now. The ritual is complete. You're still here, but just barely. Not quite awake, not quite dreaming. Somewhere in the soft twilight between, your body has forgotten how to move. Your mind, it's floating above you now, slow, like smoke from a long dead candle. This is the end of the road, the last stretch of the medieval night. Tonight's dream, there isn't one, not in the usual way. No beasts, no fire, no whispering ghosts, just stillness, because eventually, even the wildest dreams must end. Even the loudest memories begin to fade, and in the quiet that follows, that's where you are now. You lie still in your straw bed. The fire has turned to ash. The house creaks once, then falls silent. Outside, the fog drifts through the trees like a slow-moving thought, and inside your chest, a softness grows. Not peace, not exactly, more like permission to stop holding on, to rest, to not know what comes next. The medieval mind feared many things: sin, spirits, sickness, but most of all, they feared the moment just before waking, the moment when the dream ends, but the world hasn't begun yet. Because what if the world had changed? What if the things you saw in your dreams had followed you? What if the silence you brought back meant something? So they moved slowly in the morning, lit candles before speaking, said small prayers before rising. Let the dream leave them gently. That's what we'll do now. No rush. You're not meant to wake just yet. There's no bell, No rooster, no voice from the rafters telling you to work, to pray, to fear, only breath and the weight of your blanket and the sound of your own heart, slow and quiet now, like a drum forgotten in an empty chapel. You may not remember any of this. That's all right. Not all dreams are for remembering. Some are just meant to keep you company while you sleep. And you've had good company tonight. History, ghosts, monsters, saints, you. They've all walked with you. They always do. And tomorrow, you'll wake. The fire will be out. The world will feel heavy again. Your feet will touch the cold floor. But maybe, just maybe, a piece of this night will stay with you. A flicker of candlelight behind your eyes. A word you never quite heard. A quiet feeling in your ribs that something old and kind has watched over you while you slept. That's enough. That's more than enough. So now let go, not forever, just for tonight. Close the last door, blow out the last flame, and rest. You've made it to the end of the night. You are safe, you are still, you are sleeping, and you are not alone. Good night.